Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. The Practical Guitarist Podcast is brought to you by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Great Lakes Guitar Pickups provides fantasy tones at prices a practical guitarist will love. Featuring top-notch construction, attention to detail, and a fully custom product, if you can dream it, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups can probably build it. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Are you a regular listener? Why not? David here reminding you of all the ways you can participate in the Practical Guitarist Podcast. Subscribe using your chosen podcast app. Review us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/practicalguitarist or on Twitter as @practguitarist. Support the show. Merchandise is available in our Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. And donate to us via Patreon, available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. Reach out to us directly via email at questions@practicalguitarist.com. Hi, Jim.
Wow, David. Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah, anytime. It's always the nicest way to say hello. It's the way we've always said it in our family.
True.
Fuck, man. I had a rehearsal today.
Yep.
I drove in the city, and then I stood in front of the dude's house for like 15 minutes because, he's in an apartment building, and I'm like, I don't know which buzzer's his, and I tried to get him on the phone, and he wasn't answering his phone.
Don't you love that?
It's just the whole thing, and I was so mad. I was like, you know what? I give him 5 minutes, and if he doesn't show, I'm leaving because I'm standing out in the neighborhood I don't know with a guitar on my back and a friggin' amp in my hand.
Yep. You're in the Chicago area, so it's not exactly warm.
No, well, so today was 40. It was like 42. We dress appropriate. I got my winter coat on, and I was kind of laughing because I did a rant. It didn't get posted, so I probably won't post this one. I did a rant for the Patreon thing, but it was about the first snow because we had our first snow the other day. And I mean, like, my snow, it like covered everything. It melted off the streets right away, but it was enough that people were like, holy fuck, what do I do?
Oh, Jesus.
So, yeah, it was a fun commute, let me tell you. And I risked life and limb for that, and I still didn't post it because I was driving down the road with the phone in one hand and one hand on the wheel, it was a whole thing. So, what's new with you, Jim?
Not much. Not really.
Nothing.
I went to rehearsal last week, and then I spent 4.5, 5 hours rehearsing on Saturday. But I sat with a keyboard player, and we played over and over and over and over. And I've had a very, very lazy day today. I'm drinking wine.
Yeah, I'm a brandy sniffer.
Yeah.
Very big.
Well,
it's not a brandy sniffer.
It's a low ball. But
you drinking? What are you drinking? Boone's Farm? You drinking Mad
Boone's
Dog
Farm.
2020?
No, Fonseca. I don't drink cheap shit. If it's under $10 a bottle, I don't have a tendency to even try.
Are you hearing this snob? Is our listeners hearing this snob right now? Sound off in the group.
I had a friend say, "Oh my god," because I won't buy beer that's under $10 a 12-pack.
Jim, high roller here.
I just won't. I don't drink enough.
I don't drink at all. So
yeah, well,
I don't buy beer. Period.
Yeah, I don't drink enough for me to say.
You should have just left it alone. I don't drink enough.
Yeah, I don't drink enough. No, I don't drink enough for me to go, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get the cheap shit today. I'm going to get $9 a 12-pack.
So let me guess. This doesn't come in a box, right?
No, it comes in a bottle. Comes with a bottle with a real cork, not a piece of plastic or a box with a plastic. What do you call it on it?
Did you sniff the cork?
I don't have to.
Was it a tone cork?
It's a tone cork. It's an American wood.
American hard cedar.
It's a port. Okay, so it's a port wine. So, what some people call dessert wine. So I guess I had my dessert for dinner.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's Mad Dog 2020.
No, that is not a dessert wine. I'll tell you a true Mad Dog 2020 story. Okay, musician friends, has this ever happened to you?
Jim's been drinking. I warned you.
My cousin and I was 18, so I was old enough to buy beer back then and wine, obviously. And the drinking age in New York was 18. This was 1982. So my cousin and I decided we're going to have some drinks and then record. That's always a great idea. I'm just letting everybody know.
Yeah, especially when you can't remember what you recorded until you listen back.
That the drunker you are, the better you sound in the moment. So, which is why Ace Frehley thought he sounded so good for so many things.
Oh, we're going to talk about him tonight too.
Yeah, we can talk about Ace because I do want to discuss the what is it, the end of tours or whatever they got going on.
Yeah. Well, I saw his interview or I listened to his interview on No Guitar Safe. We're going to talk about that.
And I listened to his interview on what's Eddie Trunk.
Yeah.
So it was probably similar stuff because he seems to be repetitive, almost like he's trying not to be scripted, but he's scripted. Anyway, so my cousin and I we got completely obliterated. I mean. So we bought Boone's Farm, and I decided I was going to splurge. He bought Boone's Farm, and I bought Jack Daniels. So those are two things you definitely, if you want to try drinking some things together, we had the two of those, and my stomach didn't think it was a very good idea.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So we went down, and after the puking was done, or this was maybe before the puking, I'm not really sure about the timeline because I kind of blanked out somewhere in there. We went down into his basement. We set up a tape deck and did some DI stuff and started running tape. And this was, what is it, 1/4-inch reel to reel.
Yeah.
And we thought we recorded the next best thing. We thought we had our album in the can. We were so good. So good. Couldn't wait to show my girlfriend, who wound up being my wife. Still my wife.
Does she have fond memories of this recording?
Oh, good Lord. So the next day, I'm all excited. Of course, I'm a little bit hungover. I'm all excited. I'm like, I'm going to show my girlfriend this great recording. And in my memory, it sounded awesome. I hit play.
And you're like, what the hell happened?
What the? It was awful. Awful. So let's talk about Ace Frehley.
All right. Yeah, let's talk about Ace Frehley for a minute. So all right. I'm not a big Kiss fan. Let's start off by saying that. I don't want to insult anybody. I know we get a lot of Kiss fans in the group. A lot of Kiss fans that exist. You're one of them. So I'm gonna phrase this a question. So Ace Frehley, from what I know, is obviously the guitar player for Kiss early days, right? So he was the guy they hired allegedly to come in and play these songs. My understanding is a lot of the solos were like pre-worked out before he got there.
They were, some of the songs were written before he got there. If you listen to Gene's accounts and Ace's accounts and Paul's accounts, and you kind of know that the middle is somewhere in between all those. A lot of the songs were written that we know today as some of Kiss's best hits. which was pretty much the Alive hits.
Yeah, right.
Ones like Kiss Alive. Those were written by Ace Paul and Gene and a couple of folks when they were in a band called Wicked Lester.
Okay.
And Wicked Lester had an album that didn't go anywhere. So, and those songs were not done. There was a guy his last name was his first name was Desmond something or other, who was also one of the writers. So you'll see his name on a lot of the stuff. I'm not a big enough fan to have all that memorized. But so now if you're talking about like the Detroit Rock City solo, that was one that Bob Ezrin wrote of Pink Floyd The Wall fame. He's a producer. He wrote that song, and yeah, go ahead.
Well, ultimately what I'm getting at is that let me put it to you this way, and I don't want to disrespect anyone, but his solos are not known for being like extravagant and having all kinds of flair. They fit the song. They provide a little bit of extra energy and excitement, but they're not like genre reinventing or anything like that.
No.
And so this is the first time I'd ever even heard him speak, right? And watch this interview.
Sounds like a cartoon character.
He sounds like a cartoon character. He sounds like so we all know that there are various guitar celebrities who have abused and used a lot of alcohol and drugs over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Walsh is the one that comes to mind.
Yeah, you listen to him talk, and of course he had the stroke.
He had the stroke, and that's a big part of that.
Yeah, that's a big part of his slur.
But so to back up, I was like, I listened to this interview, and I was just like, how did this guy ever have like a career with his personality the way it is? I mean,
yeah. So Gene and the one thing Gene and Paul do agree on was that the Ace was very different. By the way, his real first name is Paul.
I've heard that before, that they had to change his name for the band because
they didn't want two Pauls on stage. So Gene was actually Jaime or Jaime. Jaime, which is that's
James.
That's
Jamie.
James.
Kind of same thing.
So anyway, that's the only reason I know that's also my name. Anyway, they were both saying that he was a very different person when he joined Kiss. That he was funny, he was outgoing and outlandish. The only thing that they thought he was a bit too much of was he was a bit of a diva. That he would show up and he refused to carry anything. Very lazy, physically lazy in that regard. Even when you hear his interviews and some of the stuff he
admits it. He admits it.
Yeah.
And he admitted it in the No Guitar Safe interview. But what got me, there was a couple things that, like, for me when I listened to the interview where he didn't win the Mr. Personality Award, where it was like he was talking about roadieing for some other band because he just like walked up, and I forget who it was, but
Jimi Hendrix.
Well, no, it was one of them. He was playing. Oh, yeah, you're right, because it was Mitch Mitchell he was talking about.
Yep.
And he's very quick to point. I was like, well, I could play all these tunes, and I'm like, I some of that I believe, some of that I don't.
Well, yeah. So So if you listen to those early Kiss records, you can take. Okay. Let me ask this question, but it does pertain directly to this. Why do so many people love Kurt Cobain as far as rock?
I couldn't tell you because I don't like him.
Because his playing, I can't stand it either. But his playing is so accessible, is what I was told.
Yeah, and I get that.
The thing about Ace's playing is because it was so sloppy, and because it was pretty much everything he did. If you listen to it, there's only like 12 licks.
Yeah.
That he uses over and over.
Yeah.
Right. I could teach somebody everything Ace Frehley plays in 12 sessions.
Well, so he's got this new album coming out. That's what he's going around plugging right now.
Yeah, it just came out, I think.
Have you heard it?
This week? No.
This isn't, and I take it this is not his first record.
He fired his band. Got a whole new band.
Well, I know he's like, so for years he played just like acoustic Kiss shows at conventions and shit.
Yep.
Because they really didn't want anything to do with him because he had a huge drug problem.
Right.
And it was kind of a troublemaker in that regard. So he cleans himself up.
Yeah.
He does a couple of records, right?
Yeah.
Here's my problem. So they played some of the music on
Yep.
No Guitar is Safe, and I'm like, who's buying this? Because he can't sing.
No, terrible.
Oh, it's horrendous.
And you've got the sycophants who are telling me can.
Oh, that's what I was going to get at. Because they mentioned on the shows, like, oh, well, people are really happy with my vocals on that song. It's like, ooh, I want to find them.
Ooh, yeah, I want to find those three
I want to
people
shake your hand.
who think you're a good singer, because this is completely awful.
No, I mean, I when they said, oh, he's got a record coming out, I totally expect, like, oh, he's going to do an instrumental record.
Right.
Because I'm listening to him in the interview, and I'm going, this guy does not have a voice for, like, singing. And, like, not only that, but, like, he slurs his words, and it's not, like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Like, I know he's got a disability, but, it's like some people can do certain things and some people can't. For those who can't, you hire somebody else to do it for you. Doesn't mean you can't write songs.
Right. So, he should have had other people singing a lot of that stuff. In the early days of Kiss, he sang a lot of that high stuff, and he could hit those notes.
Yeah, but now he's just abused his body and trashed himself to the point.
Well, he abused his body, he abused his mind. This is a good segue into what I was getting at. Ace Frehley. I recently read "Face the Music" by Paul Stanley, and he was talking about Ace and how. Who's the guy playing for him now? Tommy Thayer. Tommy Thayer worked with Ace to reteach him his parts.
Yeah.
When they got back together, this was several.
I think he mentioned that in the interview too, which I think it's okay. I think it's also kind of weird. It's like you can't kind of pick apart your own playing, especially when his playing was that simple.
Right. Well, okay, so they were a lot of it. This is drumming, so this is the practical drummer, I guess. Peter Criss was awful, and he really was never a great player.
Right.
When you think about it, Kiss was your basic four on the floor.
Yeah.
I want to rock and roll all night, party every day was their big thing. Right?
Yeah, it was extremely simple music, but it was effective.
Right, but the songwriting was good. Love Gun and Firehouse and all that stuff. They were really good songs. So when you take it. And you look at when they got back together. I think what really ticks me off about Ace Frehley, and if I met him, I would love to get his autograph. I would love to take a lesson from the guy, because let's face it, he's done things we've never done, right? All of us, a lot of us have never done. But that said, in the interviews I saw him on a couple of interviews. One of them was Eddie Trunk's radio station, because he also does a Sirius thing. Eddie Trunk was talking about Ace's stuff, because you got to remember, Eddie's a little biased. Eddie was Ace's A&R guy. He's the one that got him a record contract solo. The problem I run into with Ace is whenever I see him in an interview, he's like, I'm the star man, not star man. I'm the star child, and nobody can replace me, and I still own this, and I still this, and I'm still that. And of course, the other guys are saying something completely different. And of course, lawyers figure that out. But every time he talks about Tommy Thayer, he has some good stuff, and then he's like, but he's not the star child. I am. People come there to see me. No, and that was Paul's thing. No, they come there to see to see the band, hear that music, and anybody could be wearing that.
Yeah,
makeup. And that is the beauty of the makeup.
So since I'm my involvement on Kiss is on an extremely rudimentary level. When I think of the band, like, I'm not thinking about the guys behind the band. You know what I mean? Like maybe Gene Simmons. I don't even see Paul Stanley that way. I mean, and so it's like, as long as it was Gene Simmons on stage for me, I don't care who's wearing the makeup. As long as they can pull it off, like I would feel like I saw a Kiss show. You know what I mean? It wouldn't.
Well, there's a lot of bones of contention right now because in a recent, I think it was the Late Show, Kiss was on, and they were obviously miming. There is a question as to whether or not Paul is going to be able to sing, and they're going to have to use backing tracks.
So is there something going on with Paul that he's unable?
Well, his voice. If you think about it, let's say he's
older. Is that what it is?
So he's 61, 62
All right.
now. So he'd be pushing it.
Okay. I'm honestly
now that said, you know what's funny? So listening to Face the Music or reading Face the Music, Paul mentioned how everybody is convinced that Gene has always been the money man. He's always been the guy that did all this stuff. When in reality, it was Paul, and it's always been Paul that was the guy that figured out how to, because they were broke. They were getting $50-$60 a week.
See, I mean, like, and I think there's so much ego in that band. I don't care who's saying what at this point. Like there's enough story going around about the both of them being legendary with money that it's hard for me to believe that that's a 100% truth. It's like, oh, I was always the money man.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I know. But if you listen to both of them, if you listen to the books and the stuff with both of them, they kind of do tell the same story.
Well, I could definitely see Gene Simmons like partnering up with Paul and being like, this is my racehorse that's going to make all the money, and being like, I know that you're capable of doing this. I'm in capable hands. I'm going to let you take care of it. I could definitely see that. He's smart enough to do that.
Well, Gene did a lot more outside the band stuff. And then like all that, you see this ton of merchandising that Gene has done, whether it's from now, of course, early on the lunchboxes and stuff, that was their manager. And that was agreed on. They said, yeah, that's a great idea. Make more money. We're outside. But these are guys, this is what's weird. So I'm listening to both their interviews were relatively the same in this respect. What they were getting from the band, from the music.
Yeah.
Wasn't even $100 a week.
No, I can believe that. Especially at that time, like that's why the merchandising was such a huge thing for that band. Was once they got into merchandising, like they couldn't stop the machine because they really weren't making a whole lot of the music side of it. Because the reason I say that is it makes sense because we know they've had songwriting partners on a lot of material.
Yep.
And their stage shows were massive. They like that in and of itself, there goes your budget. But they knew they had to do that to support the merchandising. And so for them, it was like, we could do this.
Yeah, and they had their gear stolen a couple times.
Yeah.
So once they came in, when it was still Wicked Lester, they walked in, everything was gone.
Yeah.
And then another time, some people that had access to their warehouse, where the studio stuff was, they were just selling it right out the back door. Yeah. Selling props from the stage shows, selling all kinds of stuff. So it's some interesting stuff. If you get to read the book or listen to the audiobook, Face the Music, or if you listen to, I can't remember what Gene's book was called.
It's probably going to give me too much. It'll make me too close to being a Kiss fan. So I might read the summary.
I think what you learn is some of the stuff that happens, like they talk about, the business partners and things like that. And
sure.
Like I said, as long as you read all of them and then you kind of go
build your own opinion based on the four sides of the story, Yeah,
the only one I can't ever get behind is Peter Criss. I mean, that guy was a total.
Yeah, I mean, at least with Ace, like there are still moments of guitar hero-dom there. I don't feel like he's talentless or anything. I'm just saying, like, for him to have a solo record just seems kind of silly to me at this point.
Right, well, when you think about it, Bob Ezrin, it's not that it's a complicated solo, but Bob Ezrin was like, here's what the solo in Detroit Rock City.
Yeah.
Detroit Rock City should sound like. Try to say that 3 times fast.
Detroit Rock City.
Detroit Rock City should sound like. And it was, and he sang both parts. He sang the one part and he sang the other part. And then, Ace had to, from the vocal, kind of turn that into a guitar part. So it was, you got to give him a little bit of credit. That is still his guitar solo. That's a memorable solo. The solo on Kiss Alive when he did I Want to Rock and Roll All Night. Now you got to remember the recorded version didn't have a solo on.
Okay, some point.
Of course, it's a direct lift from what's the Chuck Berry song?
Yeah, and he mentions that too in an interview too. He talked about it being just like a complete ripoff of Johnny B. Good. So
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. I don't know. I just I feel like he's one of those guys that people really gravitate towards as a guitar player. I mean, we know heroes that were really into him, like Dime. And it's
right.
It's just seems kind of odd to me that like those guys looked up to him. I mean, I get it for the showmanship angle.
Right. There was that side of it too. And I think that's what they went to. I mean, when you look at Angus Young, right?
Sure.
Angus Young was a showman.
Right.
I mean,
he looks like he's having a heart attack every night, folks.
Right. Not to say that he isn't
at least he's consistent.
A talented guitar player, but he's very consistent. It's just that when you saw him, you saw a guy that could lay on his back and spin around using his legs and play that guitar.
And the funny part is he wasn't doing any of this shit in the studio either. He was like,
no,
he was just playing.
He was sitting on a stool.
He was playing nothing pretty much most of the time. He was just sitting on a stool watching his brother do it.
So if you think about it, he's an incredible lead guitarist, but it's all about that show, I just, I was with the band this weekend, like I said, and I was reminding our keyboard player, I said, everybody has to learn a dynamic. And those guys knew dynamics. If you really think about it, Ace Frehley still knows dynamics.
Yeah.
When he, now I don't know about this band.
Well, they'd have to. They were working with some of the top songwriters in the industry at that point, even though they were pretty much broke. They had they had the wherewithal to go work with these. You're going to learn dynamics when you do that because they're going to tell you can't do this part loud. Like if you do it, you're going to wreck it.
Yeah, when you look at the first 3 albums, they didn't even sell 300,000 copies.
Yeah,
first 3 albums.
I bet they have now.
That's Kiss, Love Gun, and Dressed to Kill.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sure now, but when you think about it, those guys are. Now, did you hear him mention whether or not he thinks that he will be invited to come out on the tour?
No, I didn't. I wasn't paying attention to that. He probably mentioned it. I just wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, so in the other interviews I saw with him recently, he was talking about how the tour won't be right if they don't ask him to come out.
Yeah, I think he said that. I think he said that, but he hasn't heard anything yet.
But he is right about one thing. He is finally the guitar player they've always wanted him to be. Because, one of the things that Paul mentions is it's hard to imagine that somebody could forget how to play.
Yeah, well, not only that, but he's straightened himself out, so you don't have to worry about him, not showing up or being too strung out to be able to do anything.
Oh yeah, he just wouldn't show up. They were putting, their eggs into a basket. That one of the stipulations of the tour they did when they brought Peter and Ace back was nobody was supposed to get drunk or high.
Right.
And guess what?
Ace did.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Ace was getting high. And so, there's no question about it. Ace talks about that. He hasn't been sober long enough not to have been high. But because of that, it was like, hey, Ace, we're in Los Angeles, you're in New York, and we have to play in so many hours. When are you going to get here?
Yeah.
That type of being high. Yeah. That type of no responsibility or accountability for the person. So what I mean by when he said, I'm finally the guitar player they want, is that, I'll finally show up, I finally won't be high, and I'll finally actually know how to play. Because before that tour, like I said, Tommy Thayer had to teach him how to play again. Teach him how to play his parts. I mean, can you imagine not knowing your own parts, even as simple as they were?
I imagine there was some level of relearning how to play guitar going on at that point.
Oh yeah.
Just having
The
dealt with
chorus is
having
so-
dealt with people I know who've had drug problems, and
Well, yeah, I saw outtakes of Aerosmith when they were like that, when they got back together.
yeah,
I saw what's his name? Who's the lead singer for Aerosmith? Not Perry. Perry's the guitar player. Steven Tyler. Steven Tyler yelling at Joe Perry saying, "I wish you knew the chords." Song, like, whoa, dude.
yeah. I wish Steven Tyler knew the fucking chords of the song
Well,
too.
I wish Steven Tyler could sing, but
yeah,
he thinks he can.
That's a really funny observation too. Is like, I love when bands fight and they like kind of break down, and you hear about things like with them saying that to each other, and it's like, you're the vocalist, you probably don't know what the fucking chords are either. You just know the melody, and you're like, I hope the chords are there, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But then again, you got to remember, Steve Tyler, he wrote Dream On.
I know. I didn't really think it's that great a song. They overplay it. It's not that it's not a great song. It gets overplayed.
It does get overplayed,
Every
but it is
fucking 3 seconds. And honestly, like, that fucking little lead line thing, that little, I guess it's glissando. It's terrible. It's terrible.
That intro?
Yeah, that thing. Oh, it's awful. Like, I'd rather listen to that One Heart intro. It's
Crazy on You?
Yeah, that one. I mean, it just and that one's overplayed too, so
yep.
I don't know.
Really? You don't like the one for Dream On?
No, I'm not a big fan of that song at all.
Really?
It used to be when I was younger, but when I started listening to classic rock stations, like, that song was on every 10 minutes. And it still gets played like that. And a lot of the other songs that used to be played like that were radio staples, they've moved on. But that one still gets played every single fucking time.
Well, similar lick is the intro to, I'm almost lifted completely, is Bon Jovi's I'm a Cowboy, Wanted Dead or Alive.
Yeah.
I think they're both in D minor, aren't they? One might be D minor and the other one's in F sharp minor. I can't remember. I'm trying to. Believe it or not, the one that you're saying is overplayed is the one I can't remember. I can play the Bon Jovi one off the top of my head. But.
That's so funny. I don't know. So you had a topic tonight, and I thought it was an interesting one. I wasn't sure exactly where you were going with it.
Well, before we get to that topic, let's thank our new Patreon, Dan Kish.
Yep. Thank you for your contribution to the show.
Yep. Our top Patreon.
Now that we have
supporter.
4 Patreon supporters.
We have 4 Patreon supporters. First thing I want to say to everybody, people, I didn't think we'd ever get any. So I'm appreciative of 1. So the fact that we have 4 is just incredible. I don't know what Dave's doing with the money, but I do see him snorting some white stuff over there.
Yeah, it's called a Kleenex.
But no, now we have some money so that we get to Sweetwater. Maybe we'll be able to take everybody out for dinner or something.
Oh, we're going to do that anyway.
So
it'll pay for the Zoom account.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to announce this for Patreon supporters. We're going to start trying to do live broadcasts using Zoom. Yep. And basically, if you are one of our Patreon supporters, we'll post a link to the meeting, and then you guys can dial in. And then what we'll do is everybody will be muted during the show, and then we'll do like a quick question and answer at the end.
Yeah, cool? Give a little bit of input output type thing.
Yeah, sound cool. I'm sure everybody.
Hopefully we can get
have
Jason in there, because Jason I know works weird hours.
Well, we'll structure, because we do right now, at least with the way we're doing it, we do 2 episodes a week. There's probably a pretty good chance. And
what episode number are we on? Does anybody know?
I can tell you, actually, if you just give me just a second. We are on episode 90. This is episode 90. 10 more to go.
5 more weeks, folks. So by the end of this year, we're going to be down to 1 episode a week.
Yep.
But we are doing, after that, we're doing video content.
Yeah, we're going to start doing video content. I just want everybody to know
that is the reason we're going to 1 episode a week. We're going to move on and do some video content. I actually bought backdrops so that I'll have like 175. The first video I'm going to do is one of those ridiculous videos where somebody's like bragging about all his instruments, and then I'm going to whoops.
Yeah.
But hopefully you guys will appreciate the comedy.
You're gonna knock down the green screen on accident.
Yeah. All of a sudden,
oh shit!
one shitty guitar with no strings on it. Ah, man, you caught me.
No, so we have some creative video content ideas that we're going to put up in our YouTube channel.
Yeah,
Jim and I have been discussing them for a while. But the other thing is, like, we've been talking about putting up video episodes of the show. We haven't been real consistent with it. I do have 2 that I want to put up. I just haven't got around to doing it yet. We want to get more consistent with that.
Yeah.
Maybe going to actual video broadcasts for each episode. I don't know that that's necessarily the way that the show should be presented, but I think some episodes warrant it. We do have a feature, because we use Podbean to host the show, where it automatically posts the episode that is published right to YouTube. So if you guys have seen any of that, it's great. If you haven't, that's a good way to turn people onto the show. You can send them the link via YouTube. The other thing is, I don't post this every time we post an episode, but I'm going to start doing it. I want to make sure that everybody knows we want this episode shared with people who will find the content relevant. So if you listen to it and then you see it on our Facebook page, so we actually have 2 Facebook pages. We have a page and we have a group. So when I publish the episode, I publish the episode to Podbean. I take the link for that and I post it in the page, and then I share the page in the group. If you are a member of the group and you have not liked the page, you can like the page and share that link. So that's the nice thing.
Right. Then people don't have to join the group, and you can listen to our stuff. I've still had people ask me. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube Music because it's on YouTube. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on iTunes. You can find us on Podbean. You can find us on Facebook.
Basically, if you have the internet, you can find us.
Right. And so you can listen to us anytime, anywhere, on any device. There's nothing that and if you find something that we're not on that you think we should be on, let us know.
Let us know. I work really hard to try and promote the show this way. I join Facebook groups just to like knowledge bomb our show in there. That doesn't always go well. But aside from that, the point is, we're trying to get the show to reach a wider audience. And so anything you can do to help further that is great. I got a slew of people that were invited to the group by a fellow member the other day, and I want to thank them. They know who they are. And so moving on, we got another topic we want to discuss. So take it away, Jim.
Sorry, I was still muted. So, we wanted to talk a little bit about war and music. And I want to talk to war and music on a couple of levels. And number one, I want to talk about war and music technologically first. And that is because war changes technology. And one of the things that war changed when it comes to music is war created a need for a lot of tubes.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the tubes that you see that were then used, I think it was in the 40s that really, I know that music got tubes before that, but musical instruments and musical amplifiers got their tubes in the 40s.
Yeah, they were radio tubes.
Right, of radios. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Like close, circuit radios and things like that. Anything that the military could use to communicate.
And if you think about it, Leo Fender, whom we've spoken about a couple of times, and some of you may or may not have heard of, had a little thing called Fender Music, right? Anyway, Leo Fender, what did he do before he was in that? He was a
radio repairman. Yeah, he was an radio repairman, right?
Right. That's what engineers did back then. They didn't just.
In his case, he just built shit right out of the RCA tube book. So
exactly. And those of you who are a little bit older, like in your 40s or 50s, you've probably seen these things. When I was in school in the Navy, we had to build a super heterodyne receiver. So that was
it's like
something.
Here's the Phillips manual. Go do it.
Go do it, and you troubleshoot it right out of this manual. That you could, the same thing, you could buy it
as a civilian, right?
Yeah, at the time,
you can still get them today. You can go
in the store,
and some of them are new production. So it's not like this stuff doesn't exist in the same form.
Right.
I think it's just a little bit more.
It's right. It's a little
It's
bit
lost
more niche.
knowledge that it even exists. I mean,
Right. But there are still people out there using it. I mean, I still see people who use, large shortwave radio and stuff like that aren't on just transistors and stuff. I had to explain to my daughter that she builds a semiconductor device. So anyway, she builds capacitors for a living, and she goes, "I can't build semiconductors." And I went, "Oh, Amber,
no, that's what you do.
Amber, that's what you do all day long. 8 hours a day, you're building semiconductors." But anyway, so it is a lost art in that it's a lost language. But anyway, so there were other things that came along with that. And what's funny is that some of them purposefully and some of them not. If you think about it, guitar speakers and guitar amplifiers, the ones that we got to know and love weren't the ones that people loved because they weren't full range PA stuff.
Right.
When you think about the tubes that we love, they were the ones that weren't that great for the other applications.
Right.
Ew, these are terrible. Give them to musicians.
Yeah, give them to the guitar players. They won't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas we like covet them, we have these
Exactly.
books about like the price guide of what, a Mullard is versus,
It's just funny to see that. That's speakers, that's all kinds of technology that came from, believe it or not, the reason that we're doing this, folks, is because we're recording this and it'll come out on Veterans Day. So I want to give a shout out to some of my fellow veterans. And I wanted to mention some of the veterans that we know and love in the rock music today, such as Jimi Hendrix.
Yep. Jimi Hendrix. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a vet.
He was dishonorably discharged, though.
So he was a vet.
Does anybody want to say why he was discharged?
Yeah, why did he get discharged?
Because he was jerking off in the bathroom.
See? Now you got to remember.
I was joking.
Now, here's what's funny about that. I just want to say this. I think he was looking for. I think he off in the bathroom.
I think he was looking for a way out. To be honest with you, but
there were a lot of Section 8s going around. Like,
yeah,
and you got to remember that was a war that there. Politics aside.
He was dumped. He was dumped before the Vietnam War started.
Oh, even before it started.
Yes, like 1961 or something.
Was it really that early?
It was.
That he got dumped.
Yeah, because he was out of the military for a while before, and then he did the Chitlin circuit for a couple of years, and then he ended up in the Village. And
well, I know that he was sleeping with his guitar. I'm not as big a Hendrix fan. I really should grab myself a Hendrix bio and
his life is actually really interesting because it's not what everybody thinks it is. Like, oh, he just came from nowhere and
suddenly, oh, look at this.
No, there was a lot of people involved in his process that like got him to where he was. But his whole thing, he was a veteran. He was a paratrooper.
Yep.
He was, I think he was in for like a year and a half. And then he was dishonorably discharged because he'd had like a couple of infractions. Basically, he couldn't accept authority. And then he got caught doing that, and his CEO was like, "We're fucking tired of this. Just get him out of here."
Just get him out. Yeah, and that happened a lot. And he probably didn't even bother to go back and get it because back then he would have gotten it changed to an other than honorable, and then to an honorable.
Yeah, he probably could have gotten it moved around.
They would have upgraded that. And I bet you in memoriam they have. I'm willing to bet you money.
Here's the cool thing, right? A lot of people, so he's identified with the hippie movement, right? Like by a lot of hippies loved him. You can see him on like Dick Cavett show, for example, where they talk about him being former military.
Yeah,
and he toes the line between his fan base and being like anti-military. At a time where that was not cool. So like when these guys are getting off the planes and getting spit on by civilians here in the States, I don't think Jimmy would have been the guy spitting on them. I think he was kind of like,
I don't think so.
This isn't your war. Like, I'm not going to blame you for this. I understand. Like,
well, yeah. And so I want to get to that. So those of you, politics aside, let's not put politics in here. The people that are in the service, for the most part, I'm not going to say
they uphold the Constitution.
Right. And they're doing, most of them are just doing a job.
Yep.
They're trying to get an education, just like you or me. And so when you go in the service, I have 2 bachelor's degrees and I have no college debt. I never had college debt. So I just want to say that when it came to one of those decisions I had to make, there were a lot of things I could have done, and I made a decision to go in the military. And that allowed me to get through life and have no college debt, like I said, and be able to succeed, to get experience. They don't ask you if you got experience. You got any experience doing this? No, we'll do it anyway. That's really what the military is like. So it's just like, you ever played guitar before? No, we'll get on stage and we'll put this shit in front of you. You're going to do it.
Well, I think there's also been this like marked shift in the attitude of people towards veterans in our country specifically.
Yeah, it's gotten better.
In the 60s, obviously, we came from this era of people spitting on veterans.
That's right.
And I think there's been a marked shift in people understanding that, veterans don't necessarily get to pick the war they go fight.
No.
And especially in that era, they're spitting on people who were drafted. Like,
right.
What the fuck?
Right.
It's just mind-boggling to me.
Your little college ass didn't go to jail to get out of the war. You went to college.
Not only that, or you didn't go you didn't go to Canada.
Right. Or you went to right. Like Bill Clinton. Anyway, that's the end of my politics.
Yeah. So it's much political as veteran.
it's just fact. But there are people. Paul Stanley was talking about that in his book, because he went and he did register, and guess what? He didn't have to go, because I didn't even know this. He didn't have an ear on one side.
Oh.
His ear was completely not developed on one side, so he was deaf on one side.
Well,
which is why one of my twins can't go into the service that wants to go.
Well, the fucked up part is like the one that comes to mind, because I've done some research on him. Ted Nugent. He went to register for the draft and then did whatever he had to do to get out of it. Like, who would have thought Uncle Ted, gun-toting Republican Uncle Ted, dodged the draft?
Yep.
That's pretty fucked up.
Yep.
When you think about it.
There's no excuse for that shit.
Well, and now he's lied about it. Like 20 years on, now he's lied about it and said, no, I didn't dodge the draft. Like, I got out of it fair and square. No, you didn't. There's no fucking way. When they were going to draft people like Muhammad Ali, they, believe me, they would have drafted your ass too.
Yep.
I don't know.
There were some weird things.
Yeah,
people got out.
I have an uncle who just kept signing up for training shit to get counted out. I mean, that's basically how he got out of it.
Yeah.
Other people who went to college a lot longer than anticipated.
Yep. Oh yeah, you'd have 8-year college people. I think, believe it or not, that the war, that war in particular, allowed for a lot of the expectation that we have now of college to be increased, because there were so many more people who went to college, but they didn't go there because they wanted to.
No, they went there to avoid the war.
They avoided the draft, right?
So if we fast forward from Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
Then we had the Cold War. I think the Cold War is the one that has the biggest lasting impact on music. But the funny part about it is the people that were like involved in the whole Vietnam like protest, like anti-war movement, like John Lennon, for example. There's almost this counterculture in rock music that's actually counter to them, which happens around that time. And Ted Nugent is one of the people that kind of like starts to champion those kind of movements. And there's other people involved in it too. But I can see a marked shift where like people who once looked at John Lennon and said, he was godlike, and that we're now kind of looking at him and going, dude, what a fucking hippie, and with that kind of disdain, And I think it's really interesting that we have that we actually have like two schools of thought of that going on in rock music at that time. But ultimately, I can't think of like a bunch of famous veterans who were in bands. I still think maybe some, Jim, because that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, who are some actual veterans who are people that went and fought.
Yeah, that's where music. It's hard because when you take stuff like,
I mean, we know Elvis obviously
right,
went and fought during the
but
Korean
Elvis
War.
got it right. But
Well, he was assigned to the motor pool. He was assigned to the motor pool.
Yeah,
but you know what? You know as well as I do, Jim. Lots of people go over and get desk jobs. Not everybody ends up fighting. So,
that's right, and some of them want to do it. When I was in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, the first time when I went over, I had a friend who wanted so badly to go.
Yeah,
and there were people that were like, "Let's trade spots."
Yeah,
all it would have been is orders swapping him from shore duty to the ship.
Yeah, and they wouldn't do it.
And they wouldn't do it.
You know, actually, I've heard that when you want to do that, they want to exclude you. It's almost like nobody should really want to go and kill people. You know, that's kind of like the way they look at it. I can kind of understand that logic a little bit. I know it's not like I say that and I'm being silly, but I know that's not really what that is. Like nobody gets up in the morning and says, "Oh, I'm sure there are people who do," but I mean, like nobody. The majority of your veterans are not thinking about killing people when they go to war. Like that's not what it is at all. No, I know that. I mean,
no, for the most part, people over there, there's a lot of.
You're thinking about the mission, which is to protect people or do whatever.
I can remember people crying, scared.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wanting to go home, wanting to go see their mom. I mean. I'm kind of welling up remembering some of the stuff because it's kind of things that it's kind of things that you kind of block out to make it through every day afterwards. But and I've been retired 20 years now. But anyway, it's one of those things where the sense of what is going on around you. When we were on the ship, everybody was going through their day, and then all of a sudden, the general quarters goes off. I remember this in 1986, 85. We were off the coast of Beirut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that sounds right.
And we were going to go in to do some extraction. Stuff, and I hear a guy in my group. I was a second class, and one of the guys that worked for me was over sobbing next to me on the console, and he was scared, and he looked at me. I was 21 or 22 years old. He's 18, 19, and he turns to me and he goes, "We're going to make it home." So,
yeah, and it's
a. Sorry, I just need a sec. It's just kind of hard to for people if you haven't lived it, if you haven't done it, if you haven't been there, if you haven't been in a hot spot, you haven't had a MiG fly over your head, you haven't seen. People killed. It's kind of a different. It's kind of a different thing, and we all have. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't look at people who haven't had that happen and go, "You don't know what you're talking about."
No,
I've been there.
No. Right.
That's not me. That's not my personality.
You don't wish that on anyone either, and nobody.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
No sane person would. I mean,
no, I don't wish that on anyone. I don't want someone to have to do that to get some kind of perspective or some bullshit like that. Every male in my family before me was in the service. Yeah. Every one of them has seen people killed. Every one of them served. Every one of them, we've all seen life taken and taken life, and it's a horrible, horrible thing. It's a terrible thing to do. It's a terrible thing to go through. I don't wish it on any single individual anywhere. All that said, it gives you a different perspective on, when we came back. When I was in the 80s, there were still, by the way, these signs that you hear about where it says sailors and dogs not welcome, they did exist.
Yeah.
They weren't on but there were places, I'm going to tell you right now, you're in the Navy, yeah, you can't come in here. You just couldn't go in. Oh, and you go overseas, and you know how you're supposed to be proud of your uniform. They would tell us, do not wear anything that would indicate you're in the Navy. You couldn't wear anything that indicated that you were from some places. They wanted you to hide the fact that you were from the United States.
Yeah, I believe it.
So if people, I'm going to leave my politics here. If people think that there's supposed to be some like huge giant melting pot and America's behind the time, you've really got to do some real traveling and see some of these places that still hate our guts. And they would
or hate each other.
or hate, yeah. And they hate each other. They hate everything. There's so much hate in this world. I just wish that there wasn't, but there is. But anyway, the other thing that music, and that's what I'm going to get to, is that music changed when it comes to war, every war in history. Music changed because music became a way to express our political feelings of the times. And these days, I'm going to say it now, and maybe some people can find some music and prove me wrong, but these days, right up into the 70s, there was music about the fighting and the killing. Even though it's an anti-American fighting song, born in the USA and all that. Even right up into the 80s, we had this. You had was it Three Doors Down wrote Citizen Soldier. Now we have nothing. We have Party On songs. We have music that just is separated. It's almost like people are afraid to take a side. They're afraid to say, I am for or against whatever it is that they're for or against.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we social media has made it so everybody can be ostracized today. That's what this has to do with. When we were talking, I looked up a list of musician celebrities, and I think I want to go through some of these names as part of our Veterans Day tribute episode. I want people to stop and think about some of these names. Now, not all of these people actually went and served in a combat zone or even were, in there long enough to amount to anything. A couple of them were dishonorably discharged. Again, similar things to Jimi Hendrix. I'm sure you can probably pick out those people. But someone started off, of course, Elvis was the first one on the list. Jason Everman, who, if you don't know who that is, he played with Soundgarden, and he was actually played with Nirvana at one point as well. MC Hammer.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Tony Bennett.
Yep.
Maynard James Keenan of Tool.
Yep.
Johnny Cash. Of course, Jimi Hendrix. Shaggy, Mystical, James Blunt, Gene Autry, John Coltrane, Chris Christopherson, Billy Cox.
Yep.
B.B. King.
Billy Cox was in the same platoon or whatever with Jimi Hendrix.
Yes, I believe that's how they met. B.B. King, John Fogerty.
Yep.
That was a surprise to me because he's kind of like one of those guys that ends up doing a lot of the protest rock.
Well, his protest rock, if you listen to it, it's not.
I don't think it's.
He was protesting the government.
Yes, it was very clear.
When you hear, have you seen the rain and stuff like that? It's more about the government, not the people.
Right. Howlin' Wolf, Ice-T, Jerry Garcia.
Ice-T is an interesting one. Yeah, Jerry Garcia. The folks that are the jam band folks hardly ever believe that, but Ice-T is an interesting one. He got arrested when he was in the service. He went AWOL, and then he didn't really hide. He just kind of went home. But he was like, "You guys figure it out." He got arrested for stealing some stuff. But anyway, he's a really cool cat, by the way.
Ray Manzarek, of the Doors.
Oh yeah, Ray Manzarek, the Doors.
He served 6 months in Thailand. And then this is the one that got me, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
What would you like to convert 6 months to?
Apparently, Siri is listening to my conversation right now.
Yeah.
Fred Durst.
Yeah, Fred Durst. Yep, I forgot about that one.
He was in the Navy. He spent a couple of years in service, and then went home to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because if you go through this list, like many of these people were like dishonorably discharged. Yeah, and you know as well as I do, specifically to the time period, you know, if you're not cut out for military life, they don't want you there. You know, if you can't function as a team and like help people and go through it from that perspective, they you will probably get discharged.
Yeah.
Notably, I don't think Billy Cox was actually discharged. I think he actually went on to have a distinguished military career and then got out right before Vietnam, which is interesting because a lot of those guys ended up going right back in the service right after they got out because of the draft. But I don't think the draft was on until mid-70s? So like 71, 72?
70. I think the draft went on until 74.
Oh, I thought they started it in like 70, 71 or 72 though. I don't think that was.
Yeah, I don't know when it started. I don't remember.
I'd have to look it up.
No, it started before that.
Was it really that early?
It had to have been started before that because my father was drafted. And that was in the 60s. I think the Vietnam draft was probably 67.
1969.
69?
Yeah.
That makes sense because my father was drafted when I was old enough to remember, but not quite like. No.
Yeah, they started the draft lottery in 1969, so that would have been 69. Which kind of makes sense, like because somebody like Billy Cox kind of floated through. He may have actually been too old to be drafted at that point.
Yeah,
and because, like I said, you know, Hendrix went through the military, I think pre-1965. So,
yeah, my father and my uncle were both drafted, but they were going to go anyway. And my other uncle, their brother, was already over there. So, matter of fact, all 4 boys. My grandmother had 9 kids, 4 boys and 5 girls. All 4 boys were over there at the same time.
Well,
which is how one of them got home. My father got sent home because all the boys couldn't be over there at the same time.
Right.
Some weird thing about all male children couldn't be.
They cannot serve in a combat theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
then my other uncle pretended to be insane, and he got out.
My takeaway from this conversation, though, is that the attitudes about war have changed significantly in this country. Even when I was in high school and we had the protests, and you know the anti-Iraq war protests, I stayed out of that stuff. Number one, number two, I think there was a marked shift. I don't think anybody was blaming the military for that. And even when you went to concerts and they would talk about, you know, our boys in the service, like, you know, fighting right now, everybody kind of like, even those that were not in support of killing other people for, you know, whatever war,
right?
They don't turn a blind eye to our soldiers anymore, which is important. I think everybody may have learned something from what they did with Vietnam. And I think even the music reflects that too. I don't really feel like even a song like Rooster from Alice in Chains, I don't really feel like a song like that is positive about war. I don't think anybody's singing gleefully about, you know, hey, it's really fun to shoot people. And I think those songs tend to be, especially the popular ones anyway, tend to be, you know, this is an awful thing and nobody should have to go through this.
Yeah, when Three Doors Down did the video for Love Me When I'm Gone, because the song doesn't explicitly say anything, but the video showed this guy that was going off to fight, you know, and they were talking about how they got hell, you know, for doing the video, and how people were like, well, you're supporting the stuff, and he said no, and he came right out and says in a live version of the song, he intros the song, and he says, we're supporting the men and women who are over there fighting for what they believe is right and doing what they believe is right and coming home to us. We shouldn't reject them for that. They're doing what they're paid to do. They're doing a job, and it's unfortunate that the government may say, "Hey, we want you to go over here and fight this," and it's not what those people want.
Maybe I didn't understand this, but there was a record that came out several years ago from Green Day called American Idiot.
Oh, yeah.
Is that supposed to be a reference to someone who went and fought in the Iraq War? Like, is that... Because I know it's a concept record, and I know the video featured scenes that look like they were the Iraq War.
I don't think that anything about American Idiot was about...
Well, I wouldn't put it past those idiots to make something that would basically like, oh, I'm going to insult somebody for, believing a certain thing or whatever.
Well, I know that so it says that the
no, I'm not seeing that. Maybe it's just the music video I'm thinking of.
I think there's a music video in there that shows a person, but I think the idea was that there are people who do what they're. I think it's more about the world as it is now, where people just follow celebrities because they're told to follow celebrities.
Yeah, no, it certainly is a major issue. I mean, I so you think about that, like people who today we don't see many celebrities get off their ass and go defend something that they believe in.
No. What they do is threaten to move to Canada.
Yeah,
and I mean, like Canada wants them.
Fine. It's fucking go. Like, to be honest with you, if anybody who's listening to this show thinks that we don't have threats to freedom that are both foreign and domestic right now, we have problems.
Yeah.
And I don't care which side of the aisle you hail from, there are enemies to freedom and democracy out there. That's what we have a military for. And so when I hear things like a celebrity saying, I don't care who it is, and I guarantee you there are music celebrities that have said shit like this, I'm going to Canada. Fuck you. Go.
The thing that kills me about anybody that says, if this happens, I'm going to go there, just means that I'm going to run away from the problem.
Yeah, I mean...
That's what it tells me.
Well, it tells me they're not dyed in the wool, like, they don't really love their country the way that they portray to.
Right. If you want to do things, do things. Do things and change. Don't bitch about them. Don't cry about them.
Vote.
Change them. If your guitar playing sucks, do you go golf? No, you sit down and you practice guitar, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you do.
Or you stare at your guitar and will it.
Yeah. You will play well.
You focus on the problem. You don't run away from the problem, and you don't make out like everybody else is an idiot but you. And that's what makes me mad. Is like I was having a discussion with somebody on Facebook the other day, and I said this, and I said that like all things, we need solutions to problems. We don't need to talk about the problems. We need solutions.
Right. And I think that's one of the things. Okay, so the one thing that I took away, if I could take anything away from my military career, it is this: you don't solve problems by bitching.
Nope.
When I would go in, okay, folks, we're in the bonus stuff, so you won't hear anymore. One of the things that I learned really early on, I was sitting in the workspace and there was something I had to do. I can't remember. Well, if this was over here, it would be better. And if this was over there, it would do this. And if this was like this, and my leading petty officer just sat at me, and he was just staring at me like, had his hand on his cheek like I'm doing right now, resting his head in his hand. He goes, then why don't you do something about it? He just went like that.
Just sitting there fucking talking about it.
Instead of bitching. He goes, you know what? I've always heard a bitching sailor's a happy sailor. You must be the happiest motherfucker I've ever met. And that little statement, that one thing taught me that, wow, I could sit there and bitch, or I could do something. So I made changes and I did things. And sometimes when I'd say to him, I'd say, oh man, I was so blessed to have such a great guy, Jim Wilkerson, as my first leading petty officer, because he said to me, he goes, I was talking about trying to make some changes, and nobody listening to me up above. He goes, you know what? The people up above you, they're not interested in what's better for you. They don't care about what's better for you or anybody below them.
Yeah.
They just don't care. The only way to convince them that they should make a change
and then improve their life
is to make it to them seem like it's in their best interest.
That's what I said. Just do it, implement it, and then show them how great it is for them.
If you can invent, and if you can get them invested in this being good for them, then they will make that change, and they will do that for you. I mean, if you think about this, we do try to do this with protests, right? When you protest, when a person protests, what is the objective of the protest? Hey, I will leave you alone and I will quit complaining if you do something about this. Well, that's not really an effective protest, is it? I mean, if I stand outside with some signs, not really very effective. Then let me
get through this, and then I got something to say.
Protest, right?
Right.
But if I stop buying your product and I convince other people to stop buying your product, now I've got a convincing way of protesting you. So if I can hit you in the either in the wallet,
if I can get your attention,
right,
rather than just to wave something in front of your face,
right? Because who cares,
right? Okay, so here's my take. Talk about protests, and in music we have protest music, right?
Right, which we don't have it.
Well, they're out there. I just don't think they're protesting the same things they used to. And maybe their protests are more noble.
Maybe they're protesting bunnies. I don't know.
But here's the funny thing. Like, I listened to these bands doing their protest music back in the 60s and the 70s. And I laughed because I'm like, how stupid was everybody? These guys are protesting. So they're trying to get this political message across. And they're just cashing in. And in many cases, they weren't even using that money to benefit the political groups that they were in support of.
Yeah.
What a joke.
If you think about it, that has been, again, I don't want to take this, so I won't go any further down a political hole. If anybody ever wants to talk to me on a political thing, you can get a hold of me on the side.
Do it offline.
But I will say this, that there is absolutely 0.0% of politicians are telling you the truth about anything. They're telling you nothing truthful about anything. Yeah. I don't care which side you're on, Republican, Democrat, green, orange, purple, blue, pink polka dot, or yellow. None of them, and I do mean none of them, are telling you the truth 100%. There's no agenda in telling you the truth.
Well, I'm just saying.
I'm not saying become some weird ass conspiracy theorist. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying think about what they have for an agenda and think maybe, just maybe, they're not giving me 100% of the truth, and I should probably think for myself. But you know who you shouldn't listen to? George Clooney, Kim Kardashian, Kanye West.
Any of them. Because
anybody who's sitting out there.
Do they have a political science degree?
They're paid to lie to you, and they do a good job of it. George Clooney lied.
He's an actor.
He was never a doctor, but people were convinced he was one hell of a doctor on ER. Okay? I mean, come on. None of these people do what they do for truth, justice, and the American way.
The light bulb went off in my head, though, when I started this argument. It's like, well, if you want to have a career in music now, why don't I know somebody out there will probably do this at some point, and I'm not saying that they're going to come from this show or anything, but just write protest songs for other people. Yeah. You don't even have to believe in what you're saying.
No. It's just like now, those of you who are, super hardcore Christian probably shouldn't watch this, but if you get a chance to watch South Park's episode Christian Hard Rock and watch Cartman write and make millions on Christian music, you'll understand why it is that there are people out there who are writing.
There are atheists writing Christian music.
Exactly.
There are. Somewhere out there.
The point is, I'm not saying that you should never believe anybody. I'm just saying that you should always take everything that's said with a grain of salt, and just take what you believe. I mean, I'm not going to let Miley Cyrus tell me how to vote, and those who do are morons. I'll just tell you right out, if that's who you thought was telling you the right way to vote, you're a moron. I don't want anything to do with you anyway. Stop listening to my fucking channel. I mean, but if you're thinking for yourself, and Miley Cyrus said, "Hey, you should vote for this person," and you thought, maybe I should take a look at it, and you took a look at it, and you decided it was right.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to get clued into something from a celebrity, but it's not okay to let the celebrity make the decision for you. My wife got into trouble this week. There was a celebrity on Facebook that told one of their followers, "You should just vote Democrat because it's great." And the follower was like, "Thanks for telling me who I should vote for in the election. Now I know how to cast my ballot."
Yeah.
And my wife was like, "Wait a minute. You let that person tell you who to vote for? Like, you're out of your mind."
I had a person on Facebook who said, "I'm voting. It doesn't matter what party."
Yeah.
Because we all hear it. "I'm voting Republican Party down the line. I'm voting Democratic Party." I said, "They love you. You're a sheep. Bah, bah, bah."
Yeah.
And I wrote this big long thing. They love to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, sheep. Can you say it for me? Bah, bah, bah. And I just kept writing it. Can you say it for me? Bah, bah, bah. Can you say it for me? Bah, bah, bah. Because you're just a sheep. Turn around, sheep. Go get your hair cut, sheep. Go eat this, sheep. Go do that, sheep. Because that's what you're doing. You want me to get my dog to chase you into the barn, sheep? I just kept writing it like that.
Well, I see that as
they must have posted like 4, because you know me,
Yeah.
I won't respond. They must have posted 400 responses to yell at me, but about the fact that they weren't a sheep for voting one party all the way down.
Well, Joe,
yeah, you are, because you didn't think for yourself. It's one thing to say, you know what, those were all the candidates this time that I enjoy, but it is quite another thing to say, I'm gonna vote straight down because that's my party. That's like saying I'm gonna bet $200 on the Bills to win the Super Bowl because they're my team.
I guarantee you, I don't care what party you're in, I guarantee you there's somebody in that party you don't agree with.
Exactly. And there's somebody in that party that's a racist. There's somebody in that party that is
sexist.
Sexist. There's somebody in that party believe me, I don't care which party you're in, there's somebody in there that's a scumbag. That shouldn't be following.
Which is why we're having this conversation. But I also see that, and to connect us back to Veterans Day in the episode, I see this as an insult to the people that have defended our ability to vote and to have a democracy in this country.
Yep.
Jim, you've been in other countries. You have seen other governments.
I have. I've been to Russia. I've been to I could spend a long time listing, but let's just say I've been to several continents and I've been to several countries. I've been into the nice parts of it, and I've been to the guts where the people. I went to Egypt, and I saw people living 12, 15 stories above the ground with no walls.
Yeah,
that's just no windows, no walls.
Yeah,
think about it for a minute. These people are in dire straits.
They might be lucky if they have a curtain.
Yeah, I went to places in Africa where, and no, I wasn't there to solve their problems. And I didn't think, I love, there's one South Park where Bono, they find the cure to AIDS, by the way. And the cure to AIDS is just infuse yourself with lots of money. So Bono goes to Africa because he's Mr. Frickin' I'm going to solve the world's problems.
This is so awful.
Yeah, that was an old one. And he goes, woo, we have a way to solve your problems. Just fill your bloodstream with money. And then he walks away. And of course, we all know that's not a solution to problems.
No.
Not everybody has a bunch of money, Bono. But thanks a lot for telling us. It may as well be $5.
That's why he's the world's biggest pile of shit, too.
Yeah, they had another one where he was the biggest turd. But the point is that there's this lack of this total disconnect. There's these people who live in America. We live in North America. Even Mexico is not that bad off. Most areas.
I've been to Mexico in some places. I've seen some
I've
shit.
been to, but
I've seen some shit.
yeah. Well, I went down there. Let's just say that I did some time in Tijuana, and those who want to hear about my time in Tijuana, you still have to pay for that. Dan Kish is the only person I think that's at Dan Kish, maybe John Bott.
Yeah, you feel that they are at the level.
Yeah, they're at the level where they can hear the story. But anyway, yeah, I've seen some shit.
Yeah, you have.
And the thing is that when you go into these countries, here's what you don't appreciate. You're thinking, oh, they could just, there's plenty of people go, just go get a job. Yeah, no, that's not the answer.
What job?
Right, what job? Just go make money. What money?
I'll give you my example, and we need to start wrapping the episode up after this.
Yep.
You tell somebody to go get a job in a foreign country.
Oh.
In India, they literally give people scissors to cut grass just so they can give them money.
Yep.
And make them feel like they're getting something.
That's right. There are some societies, folks. I know this is hard for some folks to believe. They don't want handouts. So when you did you know, by the way, if you look up the history of tips, when you tip your waiter and waitress,
it
the
used to be an
barista
insult
at the bar, that was an insult.
Yeah. Because you don't make enough money.
You're going to need this money because you won't have work soon. You suck.
Yep.
So somebody convinced somebody that it was no longer an insult. So in other words,
so now it's gratuity.
Exactly. Now it's a gratuity. We don't want to call it blow it out your ass. It's still a tip, and it call a spade or whatever wording you want to use. But the point is, you've got to realize we are not the all be all end all. I always used to love or hate, I should say, watch Star Trek, and they would go out and they would say, and we're going to get this place to change its ways and understand that humans are great and everything else. I'm like, what if they didn't want us to do that? What if they hated what we stood for?
Yeah. So
just saying.
So this is David's final thought.
Your philosophy.
Yeah, my philosophical.
There's my political song, guys.
My philosophical moment for the show, and that is that for Jim and I think I'm speaking for Jim, and Jim can say if he agrees or not. But I think what we're trying to say with this whole episode is that if you on Veterans Day, take a moment to think about how connected conflict has been with music in this country. And then take another moment to reflect on the fact that protest music is as popular as it is.
Yep.
And make sure you are not being sycophantic about it, and that you actually believe the protest you're listening to, and that you believe in its principles. Because I think a lot of times we can listen to a song and we can say it's a great song and idealize it, but we miss the message.
Yeah. Think for yourself.
Yes,
regardless of what I think.
Think for yourself.
Think for yourself, because that's the best gift you can give yourself. So think for yourself. Be what you want to be. Do what you want to do. Believe what you want to believe. As long as you realize that the things that come into play, you start listening to facts and figures. Get more than one. Don't just watch CNN. Don't just watch Fox News.
No, hell no. Hell no.
I don't.
Don't just watch United States news networks.
Exactly. I mean, get your news from various sources.
Go watch some Al Jazeera. Go watch some BBC. Take a look at the rest of the world.
And start thinking about it. Even if not everybody has the opportunity or the option to travel the way I did and to see some of these things. The
internet's a wonderful tool. You can learn a lot about people by connecting with people in other places and talking to them.
Exactly. And finding out, and don't, I love the people that are in,
we have an international audience here. I mean,
Yeah, we do.
And so I think it's important to point out at this point that like neither Jim nor I are the kind of people that are like, oh well, but America over everybody else. Like we understand that the rest of the world needs help too sometimes, and we're willing to do that if you want us. Obviously, that's a political stance that's in question there, and sometimes politicians make decisions about things that they know nothing about. So,
this is the thing I do. Home is home. Home is where what you love about where you are. That's where home is. It's not. It doesn't have to be America. It's about you. And I like David is saying, we have a lot of international listeners, and those international listeners, they're probably over there going, he's right. America isn't always the greatest thing it's always cracked up to be.
Hell no, it isn't. We know that.
and we've got a bunch of infighting, and we've got a bunch of things going on, and people thinking that they can sit on their cell phones and protest. Is that your idea of protesting? It's Facebook posts, 10,000 likes. Yeah. You're a joke. You know that, right? You're a joke. If that's what you think, I laugh in your face.
Yeah, awareness is only half the battle, folks. Doing something about it is the other half.
Exactly.
So, on behalf of our listenership and myself, I'd like to thank you for your service to our country, Jim.
And I appreciate that, and I'd like to thank all those out there who are doing it now and who have done it in the past.
Yeah. So take a moment when you listen to this episode, when the episode's over, take a few moments to just stop and reflect on the people that are serving for us now and the people who have served for us and are now veterans. So I guess with that all having transpired this episode, I have been David.
I have been Jim.
And we are the Practical American Guitarists.